We all do better when we all do better. That means everyone. All better, love one another. We have so much fun. We all do better when we all do better. That means everything.
Well, hello there, everybody. It's Ian. I am glad to, I was going to say glad to see you, but I guess glad to be seen by you. This is not how I typically come to you on a Sunday morning for a message with Fabric. And so this is kind of a different sort of thing. We are in the middle of, we had a forecast of somewhere between like 10 or 12 inches of snow falling here in March. Somewhere between 10, 12 inches and like 18 feet of snow. So we're not really sure how much snow is going to fall, but we know that the streets weren't going to be plowed, and we know that the sidewalks at Field Elementary were going to be a little bit of a situation. So, this is just living in Minnesota, and we have these options now to accommodate us. So you know how it is. Here we are, and honestly, there's something sort of fitting, I think, about this, that we would be sitting with a topic like prayer when the world outside is asking us to slow down a little bit. So let's just kind of like lean into that, and we're gonna have a little fun, just doing kind of a video chat. So welcome. It's good to see you. It's good to be seen by you. It's good to be connected in this online space. So I want to just start by landing on sort of the central tension. We're in week 2 of this series called Dear God, talking about prayer. Last week we talked about God themselves, like the that which we often call God, like the any number of sort of boxes that we try to put God in to understand who or what the divine is. And this week, what I really want to get at is like our relationship with ourselves, and our how do we approach prayer? Like, dear me. So the central tension here is that we live in a culture that tells us that we are fundamentally self-sufficient, right? Like, you are the author of your own story, and your wins are yours, and your losses are yours. And it's up to you to just figure it out. Plow through, nose to the grindstone, figure it out on your own. You'll notice I called this the myth of self-sufficiency. This story shapes, I think, fundamentally, this story shapes how we relate to prayer more than we realize. Because if I'm basically self-contained, then prayer is going to end up feeling like either unnecessary, like no, I've got this, I'm good, I don't need help, right? Or prayer is going to feel humiliating, like I cannot believe that I need help. I can't believe I would dare ask for something that I should be able to provide for myself, right? So I think that this is the reason too, for the record, that so many people in our culture struggle with the concept of faith too. Like, that word faith is kind of a loaded word, so we can just name that reality. It's okay. But faith, it's a comes from the Greek word pistis, faith, which is a word that fundamentally means trust, confidence, or belief. It implies um, it implies an active, loyal trust involving our whole personhood, right? Like, all of who we are, our mind, our heart, our actions, rather than just mere intellectual agreement or approval. I think we have a hard time with faith, just like we have a hard time with prayer, because there's just so much messaging coming at us all the time that we are ultimately self self-sufficient, that we can do anything on our own, right? Like, human beings, uh this is not who we are. This is not how we have evolved as a species. Like, let's just be like super clear about that. So, what if that story, the story of the independent, self-contained, self-sufficient self, simply is not true, right? There are moments that we can celebrate where, like, it would have been easy for me to give up. It would have been easy for me to just say, you know what, I'm going to take the L on that and move on. It's okay to celebrate when we endure. It's okay to feel proud about that. Absolutely. But that story of the solely entirely independent, self-contained self is perhaps just not true. And what if that reality, that story being not true, we're going to say that not as a guilt trip, but as genuinely good news. Like, it is good news that you are not on your own. That's good news. So I want to go into this three-stranded concept here, the three-stranded reality. Now, this is a metaphor that Fabric has used across many years, like actually using strands, braiding them together. There's that old biblical idea that, like, a three-stranded cord is not easily broken. So we think about, like, weaving, like this is part of the metaphor that we use to name ourselves, right, as a community fabric. That, like, we are all woven, that we are all constantly weaving one another into ourselves and into each other and into creation and into the divine, right? So if we look at these three strands, and it doesn't matter what order they're in, they're not ordered, they're just three strands. Um, there's the strand that represents God or the divinity or whatever kind of metaphor you might use. Many call God like spirit or love or peace or the source and ground of all that is. Like, there's that strand. The like whatever metaphor works for you, whatever name works for you. And then another strand represents all others. So other people, your neighbors, your family, the people in your lives, your coworkers, your classmates, your the woman who walks down the street that you see, but you never really have met her. Like, you don't really know her name, but she's part of your life because you see her all the time. But also not just people, but like the earth itself, right? Like creation, nature, plant life, animal, water, all of that, all others. And then, of course, the third strand to name in this is you. It's the self strand, right? Like, I have my true self, like who I really am at my core. And there's these three strands, and the reality is that the three strands are already interwoven. Like, I want to just say that, like, it's not always our job to, like, weave them together as though they all exist on their own. I want to make the argument that they exist as an interwoven reality already. That's the default posture, that we and all others and the divine are all interwoven, interconnected all the time. So that reality makes the wovenness, the connectedness, not the goal, but the reality. And so the question that I want to get at here isn't like, how do I get connected, or how do I weave myself into God, or how do I weave myself into others? How do I get this to be a little bit of a tighter weave, right? Like, I think the reality is that the question isn't, how do I get myself connected? The real question might be, what has convinced me that I'm not already woven with all things, right? I'm gonna put that down for a minute. Western culture and a lot of Western religious thinking, especially, has trained, and Western, global Western thinking and religion also, sort of economically, politically, business, all of this is very deeply embedded in us. So it's hard sometimes even to recognize that there might be a different way. But a lot of sort of Western culture has taught us and trained us to experience ourselves as separate from each other, in competition with each other, separate from God. Maybe God's ourselves, right? Separate from the earth. Like, the self is an island, right? Like, that's the lie that we have been spoon fed for our entire lives in the global West. And so prayer, from that vantage point, prayer feels like shouting into the void. Like, where is there room for prayer in that? I don't know that there really is. So I want to just kind of poke at this, because there are other ways of thinking. There are other ways of experiencing ourselves as already interconnected. And actually, it's outside forces on us, outside messaging, that is telling us or convincing us that we're not connected to all these things. Sharon Salzberg is a Jewish Buddhist meditation teacher and one of the more respected voices in contemplative practice in the United States. And she tells this story, like, there's a lot of versions of this story. So it's kind of like, it's one of those things where I'm like, I'm going to take this with a grain of salt. But I think there's deep truth in it, right? Big T truth. But there's this story that she brought the concept of self-hatred to the Dalai Lama and asked him, like, hey, what do you make of self-hatred? In America, this is a deep issue that I'm seeing people come to me with questions about, like, oh, I don't like who I am. Fundamentally, I don't like who I am. I want to change who I am. Self-hatred is real. The Dalai Lama was genuinely baffled. Like, as the story goes, he kind of turned to one of the translators and looked very confused, and kept going back to the translator and going, like, what? Trying to get an understanding of what the question even was. The idea that a person could be at war with themselves, could experience themselves as fundamentally broken or unworthy. He had just no framework for it from the sort of cultural, spiritual, religious place that he was coming from. His framework, no framework for it. Not because suffering isn't real, but because his entire formation, his entire thought around this had been rooted in inherent connectedness. Like, you, dear you who are watching this video, you are already held. You are already part of something, right? What has convinced us that we're not woven in already, that we're not a part of a strong cord braided together? That feels worth sitting with. Maybe it feels worth sitting with for you. If it is, feel free to pause this, do a little journaling on it. We're going to come back to that though, okay? Like, that question is really at the heart of this. If we're going to approach prayer, I think we also need to sit with that question of what has convinced us that we're not already connected. The Dalai Lama said, his only response to Sharon Salzberg, by the way, was, "I thought I had a very good acquaintance uh, with the mind, but now I feel quite ignorant. I find this very, very strange." I think it's strange too. It's also my norm. Ha! Hate that for us. So we're gonna think about prayer today as sort of a reweaving, a as a tightening, as a practice that we can take on. It's something we can practice to recognize reality as it actually is, not reality in terms of, or frame through the framing of the lie of self-sufficiency, the myth of self-sufficiency. When you braid cord, right? When you braid one of these, for the record, we made a bunch of these, and for the next few weeks at Field Elementary School at 10:30 on Sundays, we'll have these available for you to pick one up for yourself and use this as a metaphor in your own life. But when you braid a cord, you're not creating a relationship between the strands. What you're doing is you're working with the relationship that's already there. What you're doing is you're making it visible. You're making it stronger. This relationship, this braided wovenness, is a relationship that exists already. All you're doing is just making it more visible as you do the act of braiding it, right? That's all you're doing. You're making it more tangibly real for yourself. You're making it stronger. What I want to argue is that prayer does that. Prayer does that. It's less about reaching God from a distance and more about waking up to what's already true. That's how I'm thinking about prayer, at least at this point in my life. That like, prayer is a practice that allows me to say to myself, even, I am not alone. There is something larger holding me. And that something, whatever that something larger that's holding me, that something includes the people around me. Father Richard Rohr, he's one of my just kind of favorite thinkers and writers. He's a Franciscan friar and one of the most widely read contemplative teachers of our time. He writes that the false self is the self that believes that it's separate, that it's self-made, and that it's self-sufficient. Contemplative prayer, he says, isn't actually about acquiring anything, getting stuff, right? Asking this sort of cosmic vending machine for goods and services, or like tasty treats. It's not about acquiring anything. It's about dropping the lie. It's about dropping the lie that the false self tells itself, that the false self tells, that it's separate, it's self-made, it's self-sufficient. Contemplative prayer is about dropping that lie. It's about returning to what's real. So I want to offer for you, last week I offered a sort of starter pack of prayers that's just like a few words, right? Dear God, you know, amen. And you can say it in any, with any sort of tone, or you can add words, you can add punctuation, like, dear God, amen. I want to offer you another starter pack for this sort of reweaving prayer. So reweaving prayer, a prayer that helps us to drop the lie of self-sufficiency and to return to what's real, might look like these. First, honest self-reflection. Just simply asking the question, what am I actually feeling? Being honest about that. Stopping long enough and slowing down to be honest with ourselves about what it is that we're feeling. How am I experiencing life? How am I experiencing chaos? How am I experiencing relationships in my life that are challenging or situations that feel out of my control? That honest self-reflection, that's prayer. I'm just going to tell you, it is. If it is, if you experience it that way, it is. Reweaving prayer might also just look like a gratitude practice. A gratitude practice that helps us to get to a place where we can admit to ourselves, and hopefully to others too, that where I am today, maybe I feel successful. Maybe I feel like an utter failure. But to be able to say, I did not get to the place I'm at alone. Oh my gosh, that's prayer too. If you experience that as prayer, as a longing, as a celebration, as just simple practice of gratitude, that's prayer. All right? Take the permission. It may also look like lament, right? It may be looking out at the world and what is, and at our relationships and at our sort of political reality right now for me, or looking at the reality of war and inequity and violence and dehumanization, and saying, you know what? Something is deeply, deeply broken, and I can't fix it by myself. Maybe the people in my circles of influence also, all together. Maybe we together can't even fix it by ourselves. Lament. Moments of honesty in lament. You maybe already guessed this. It's prayer. And then finally, the fourth sort of prayer practice that I would love to invite you into is simply the act of receiving. So this is you know, this is a toughie. So this is just the practice of letting yourself be held, even if you feel like you don't deserve it, even if you don't believe that truly, like if you're not at a place yet where you can say, I'm not in control. That's hard enough. Maybe it's just saying that out loud. I can't control the outcome of something. Be open to the receiving though, right? Letting yourself be held, even if you feel like you don't deserve it. That especially might be prayer for us in this moment. That last one, receiving, this one that I'm going to make this slide just sit here in front of us for a little bit. This is a tough one. It's hard. It's the hardest for a lot of people, receiving. We are decent at asking. We're not great at letting the answer in. There's a line from this contemplative theologian and poet named Howard Thurman, one of my favorite writers of all time. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. carried one of his books in his briefcase alongside a Bible. It's like the two books he carried with him everywhere he went. Howard Thurman. And one thing that he said is, don't ask what the world needs. Ask what makes you come alive, and go do it. Because what the world needs is people who have come alive. I think that's still true. It's as true as when he wrote it, 80 years ago, 100, however long time ago, black and white photos. being at home in yourself, in the self strand of this cord, being at home in who you are, that's not selfishness. It's the beginning of everything else. Being at home in ourselves is the beginning of everything else. And so here's an invitation to practice this week. If you already have a cord at home, if you're like a, longtime fabric person, you may already have one of these because we've had these, we've given these out before. Again, if you don't have one and you want to get one with a keychain so you can carry keys with it, we'll have them across the next couple weeks at Field Elementary. So please do come in person and pick one up. They're free. They're for you, as just a helpful metaphor and reminder. But if you have a cord at home, maybe go find it. If not, a piece of string works, 3 strands of anything, and grab one. Just grab it and take it out sometime this week, throughout the week, maybe right now. Maybe do this instead of going to shovel right now. That can wait too. Okay. All right. Grab your 3-stranded cord and just hold it. Feel it in your hands. What I want you to do is grab one of the strands. Maybe it's braided, maybe kind of undo it all the way. Doesn't really matter. Just take one of those strands and tug gently on one of the strands. Just kind of pull at it. Notice what happens. See how the others respond as I pull here, right? Even if you try to separate yourself, who you are, from others and from God, they're kind of coming along, right? They're coming along for the ride. They're pulling too. See, when you do that, just see what thoughts come to mind for you. And as you do that this week, as you pull on that one, as you contemplate the reality that you are not apart from all others, you are not apart from the divine, the spirit of love and peace that surpasses our ability to understand. Notice, where in my life right now am I trying to hold one of these strands in isolation? Where am I trying to be self-sufficient, spiritually, emotionally, relationally? That might be a journaling prompt for you this week. Just jot it down or wonder at it. Be honest with yourself. And do it without a sense of shame, right? You don't have to fix it. It may not be a problem to fix. It is something to notice. You don't have to fix it. You just have to notice. You just have to kind of come back to yourself. Come back to the reality that these cords, their default posture is strength and interconnectedness and interwovenness. That noticing of where am I trying to hold one of these strands in isolation from the others? Where am I trying to be self-sufficient? Where am I trying to fit that myth, fit into that myth that I can do it on my own? Thank you very much. That noticing is prayer. Paying attention, letting the strands weave back together, waking up to what's already real. And I think that's the thought that I want to leave you with, that noticing is itself prayer. It's honestly hard not to pray, I think. The moment that we're honest with ourselves, we might realize that in that honesty, in that self-assessment, in that relational questioning, in that lament, in the grief, in the all of it, you might be praying already. I wonder. So, with that, let us together remember that we are woven We are connected. We are interconnected. We're not apart from one another. We're not apart from God. May it be so. Thanks for being here.
Maybe it's moonshine, maybe it's utopia, maybe it's never gonna be. Oh, oh, by the end, optimism. Maybe we can see. Oh, we are a threefold. One, all things in oneness itself. We will not let go. Won't be drift away as we are woven. Independent, solitary. Maybe we just don't know where to start. Let the fear in and let the schedule in. Even with the warning of our loneliness, we are a threefold. One, all things in oneness itself. We will not let go. Won't break with the way. Ooh, we are a threefold. One, all things in oneness itself.